have control.
Okay.
You'll be able to
Okay. Sounds good.
speak into the mic a little bit if you can.
Commissioner Smith, it's Caleb. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Good. Just a
Great.
couple more minutes and we'll get going here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 6th meeting of the Meridian Transportation Commission. Glad to have you. You may notice that we're a little short on members today, but we do have a quorum. Mr. Smith is on Zoom with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Couple the others are either traveling or busy otherwise. The first item will be the roll call. Mr. Ballard is not here. Mr. Shoemaker.
Present.
Mr. Lancaster is traveling. I am present. Mr. Hopkins.
Present.
Mr. Lewis is traveling. Mr. Smith, we see your face.
Present.
I heard you too. Thank you. Mr. LeClaire.
Present.
And Mr. Song is busy otherwise. Ex officio is Mr. Wasson.
Present.
For Compass, we have Austin Miller with us today. Welcome. Mr. Reinhardt.
Present.
Ms. Taysom.
Kate Dahl sitting in for Alyssa.
I'm sorry.
Kate Dahl sitting in for Alyssa.
Okay, thank you, Kate. And Mr. Price with ITD.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. He is, I'm going to promote him to panelist so he can check in himself, but I do see him online. Sorry. He should be able to speak for himself here in just a few seconds.
Present.
I think I heard him. Did I? Okay. All right. Welcome all. First item is the adoption of the agenda is sent out. Need a motion and a second, please, or otherwise.
So moved.
Mr. Hopkins moves,
I'll second that.
second by Mr. Shoemaker. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Agenda is adopted. Next item is approval of the minutes of October the 2nd. Anyone have any questions, comments, proposed changes, or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I propose we accept the minutes as written.
Okay, have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Leclerc, seconds. Further discussion? Caleb, I meant to mention this to you before we started, but on page 5, under ex officio updates, Mr. Price's first initial is incorrect. Okay, not hearing anything else. All in favor of approving the minutes from October 2, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? They are approved. Okay, the next item, Mr. Hood is running the show today. He's going to give us a transportation update.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little rusty, so bear with me here, but I think we'll get there. Let me pull up the packet real quick, and then we can all follow along here. That one. Or not.
While he's doing that and looking at Garrett's picture on the screen, don't forget to vote if you haven't already. Tomorrow's the big day.
Thank you for stalling. That's a good reminder for everybody, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Okay, we have the agenda up now. I am going to highlight, as is customary for city staff, just a few items beginning on page 7 in the packet. The first one I want to highlight for you is the Meridian Intersection and Pedestrian Safety Task Force, otherwise lovingly known as MIPS. I know Miranda did send it after the last month's meeting, an email that was right before she presented it to council. So I wanted you all to have the final version. There really weren't any substantive changes between what was emailed to you directly from Miranda and what was presented to council and ultimately adopted. But I did put that in your packet. So if you printed it off, you probably got about 40 pages that you were hoping you didn't actually print, but now you have it. But that's most of the packet for this month is that MIPS report. So we will be working on implementing those with police. Compass actually has a group that I think is going to take a lot of this on as well. So look for some of those recommendations from that group to move forward through ACHD, police, Compass, or other transportation partners here in the coming weeks and months and years even. The next one I wanted to bring to your attention is on page 8. And that has to do with Lake Hazel, between Locust Grove and Meridian. That project, it's my understanding that project is designed. I don't know if it's 99% or not, but it's largely moving forward. In fact, tomorrow Wednesday, on the ACHD agenda is the sewer and water agreement between the city and ACHD for that developer cooperative project. So developer there is going to be widening, including curb gutter sidewalk, that segment between Locust Grove and Meridian Road. And I haven't actually seen those plans yet. But our Public Works Department has, and Civil through Community Development have been reviewing those. Don't know exactly when construction's gonna happen. 24 and 25, I've heard some scuttlebutt anyways, that's moving forward even this fall. So we'll see. And again, I'll provide you any updates as soon as I hear more from either ACHD or that developer. McMillan Black Cat, I did present to council here a few weeks ago, that roundabout and potential partnership with ACHD through cost share. Council was supportive of that and a tier one. I know that doesn't mean much to you now, what tier one actually means, but we've been working with the city has hired a consultant to put together a matrix that has basically levels of effort to partner with ACHD on. So they're basically pre-approved levels of effort with ACHD on how we improve roadway intersection projects. So Brian McClure in my office, it's not under future meeting topics this month, but I would like to amend essentially onto the agenda or let you know that next month, Brian will be coming to explain the matrix and how it works and what's included in that tool. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's got, again, kind of pre-approved things like hardscape and boulders and trees and shrubs and where they go. Kind of streamlines the process between the city and ACHD. So again, we have a pre-approved menu. We can say, hey, just put this in, and it's already almost designed for everybody. So again, council was supportive of that effort, and we used it for the first time on this roundabout project. So more to come on that here next month. And then,
If I may interrupt you, I believe the McMillan Black Cat roundabout, the lack of one at that four-way stop had the most comments in the intersection study from the public. Very, very long list of unhappy people. The sooner the better on the roundabout.
yeah. And that one is in 2025 is what the plan is for construction there. Let's see, I'm gonna jump to page 9, and at the very bottom, Linder, you stick to Pine. This is another one where a future meeting topic. Brooke Green has requested to present to you an update. In fact, she's, I think this Wednesday, presenting to the ACHD Commission. They're making another go at what the cross section for the roadway should look like between Pine and north up to Ustick. So it's a pretty constrained corridor with some front-on housing on that arterial roadway. And so it's going to take some creative design, in my opinion, to really understand what this segment of Linder should look like into the future. So Brooke Green, again, on the 4th, will be coming and would like to explain to you some of those options as she sees them and what those concepts look like. And I think those are the few that I had highlighted, but if I jumped over something you all want to talk about or have any questions on any of those we did talk about, I would stand for any questions at this time.
Questions from Mr. Hood? I have one. I don't know whether you want to pass it to our ACHD rep, but what is the difference and why the difference, if there is one, between Ustick 10 mile to Linder and Ustick 10 mile to Black Cat? Exactly what is the schedule as presently conceived on those two?
So
Page 9.
yeah, that must just be a typo on my part because there are two different projects. So one of them should be, I'm gonna go west to east. So 10 mile to Linder is right. And then it should be Black Cat to 10 mile. I guess that's the same thing. So in your question, Mr. Chair, is the timing for construction or?
Well, in the packet,
Huh?
Ustick 10 mile to Linder as a parenthetical project is being delayed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Yeah,
Ustick 10 mile to Black Cat doesn't have the same comment. So I know there's been some shuffling. At one point, it was going to all be done as one project. At another point, one of them was going to be before the other one, but maybe now the other one's going to be before the first one. Where
So,
are we,
Mr. Chair-
where are we today?
I can start that, and if Mr. Watson wants to clarify or chime in any other way, that's totally appropriate too. But the parenthetical project is being delayed under USTIC 10 model lender. That is from the previously adopted integrated 5-year work plan to the currently recently adopted integrated. It slipped 1 year in construction. So it was planned for construction in 2025 up and until September 25th or when ACHD adopted their new current integrated 5-year work plan. It did get delayed 1 year. So I'm sorry, I didn't really explain that, but that is, it's being delayed from what it was to 2026. And then the USTIC 10 mile to Black Cat, that is a current status update. So it basically is leapfrogged or is moving quicker than 10 mile to Linder.
10 mile to Black Cat at the moment will be done first.
So there will be a bottleneck, if you will, a segment in between two wider segments, and then they'll come back. So who knows what happens through next year's budgeting and integrated 5-year work plan process, but that is currently the plan.
I kept saying at the moment. Mr. Watson, would you like to add anything?
Mr. Chairman, not a chance. No, I don't know. I'd have to do a little bit of research, sir.
I'm not looking for that kind of drill down, just wanted to clarify, because we've heard it different ways at different times. Anyone have anything else from Mr. Hood? Okay, thank you. Moving along. Mr. Hood, do your comments a moment ago mean that there will not be anything else said today other than in the packet on the Intersection and Pedestrian Safety Task Force report?
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. That's right. I just put it in the packet so you all had a copy. If you want to talk about it, we can, but that was the easiest way for me to get it to you.
Anyone have any questions on the transportation, on the Intersection and Pedestrian Safety Task Force? If you hadn't had a chance yet, I would encourage you for some nighttime reading or something. It's certainly interesting, and quite frankly, personally, I am surprised they got as much done on it as quick as they did. Okay, moving along. Ex officio updates. Mr. Watson, anything else, sir?
Mr. Chairman, John Wasson, ACHD. I have no updates for you this time.
Everything's just rocking along. Mr. Miller, anything from Compass?
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, I do just have a real quick update. One, Compass Phase 1 applications are now open. They are due by December 5th. This is the first of 2 phases, really. It's high-level reviewing of applications with Compass to see if projects are eligible for federal funds. So if the city would like to submit anything, again, they have until December 5th. If there's any questions or anything like that, Tony Tisdale is our staff contact for that. Last month, we did complete the Regional Housing Coordination Plan. Housing and transportation is so intertwined in our community. The feds have given us permission to look at coordinating all of our member agencies throughout the Treasure Valley. Crystal Campbell with the City of Meridian has been a fantastic addition to our work group. So just wanted to thank her and the city's support on the efforts to this point, and that we'll continue to have moving forward. Additionally, the Compass Board of Directors approved our 2024 state and federal legislative positions. Those can be viewed on our website if anyone is curious as to what those are with the legislative season coming up here quick. And then just a thank you to Caleb. Yes, the MIPS, we are sending that on over to our consultant. We do have a regional safety action plan that is currently underway. They will be reviewing what you all have provided and certainly incorporating that into their final product. So thank you very much. We appreciate your effort.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Miller? Yes, sir.
Recent example of a
project that one of the cities, the federal government operated on.
Pull that mic down a little bit, would you?
Is there an example of a recent proposal from one of the cities in Ada County or that where the federal government has cooperated and provided a grant for such a project?
Mr. President, Commissioner Leclerc, are you referring to a competitive grant? The Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan was a grant to actually do that planning project. So we are utilizing federal funds for that currently. We do receive federal transportation funds, not competitively, just subscribed to us annually for maintenance and other projects. So there's a list. We do have our transportation improvement program is on our website and certainly can share the link to that.
Mr. Reinhardt, how's the busing business, sir?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Hood, I feel like I need to make a public apology for, we've hired Miranda Carson as our new Director of Transportation and Planning.
It's not gonna, that's not gonna let you off.
It was, I will say this, we did have, we had great candidates. There's a great planning community in the Valley, and we had very good candidates. But as we all know, Miranda, I heard you refer earlier to the task force that she spearheaded, and her work was incredible. She will be our director. She will be representing the school district in a month or two, so she'll be taking this seat. But transportation is well. We've begun the transition to, not transition to Durham transportation, but we've begun working with them to hire a director and to put things in place for next year. They have, I think I told you, bought 220 new buses to the tune of $35 million. So they're planning on being here for a while. We're starting some planning to reevaluate how we do our schools of choice. As you know, we have elementary schools that function similar to charter schools, and they have their own a unique busing situation. So Ms. Carson and myself are going to be working through that with the Board of Trustees. But other than that, nothing to report.
So in your case, the contracted operator also owns the buses. The school district does not own rolling stock.
Mr. Chair, that is correct. We do still own in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 buses that we had while we were still doing busing. We're actively exploring how we can get those into the hands of some of our middle schools for some of the activities they run, to maybe train some of our own drivers. But so we have 40 to 50, but the new company will be bringing a whole, every bus will be brand spanking new with the newest technology in terms of video on board. That's an important piece of the technology we have in order to maintain some law and order on school buses, in particular middle school buses.
When did the change occur that y'all got out of the bus business?
Mr. Chair, 10 years ago.
Okay. And you've still got 30 or 40 buses?
Mr. Chair, because we would have had, and I don't know the exact number, but we would have owned about 200 of them. So we sell off a few every year, but they have Cascade's name on them currently because they actively use some of them. Part of our agreement.
Okay. Any other questions from the school district? Sergeant, I can barely see you behind the dais there. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Anything from the PD today?
I don't think so.
Everything's quiet and wonderful?
Always, every day.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. Mr. Price, you have anything from ITD, sir?
Yes, good morning, or afternoon, Mr. Chair. I do not have any updates. I did send Mr. Steed a list of crashes as we discussed at last month's meeting. So I did send that over to him, but nothing else to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right. I skipped over the VRT rep, Kate Dahl, today because she has a presentation for us. The June 2024 service changes that have been approved by their board. There are implications across the valley, but there are also some that specifically impact Meridian. And I have asked them to come forward today and help us understand those. You have the floor, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as the chair said, I'm Kate Dahl. I'm a principal planner at Valley Regional Transit and stepping in for Alyssa today since she wasn't able to attend. As was stated, Valley Regional Transit recently has undergone a major network redesign that was approved by the board on October 2nd. Some of the reasons you may have heard before why we underwent this change is we started looking at the network because we saw a rise in costs. We saw a rise in labor costs, a number of other costs with inflation, and essentially we were not going to be able to offer the same level of service that we had in years past. So we began examining the network, particularly taking a look at what were the lowest ridership stops and routes and how we could really invest in the areas where we could increase our ridership. So that's how the process started out. We started that process last spring. We've gone through 3 different public engagement periods to get to this point. So I won't go into all that. I just want to go over the details with you of the highlights and how that applies to Meridian. So highlights, I'll compare our current network to what the future network's going to be, what our Jane maps indicate for accessibility, how specialized services have changed, and what our next steps are going to be. So first, as I said, we really took a look at our highest performing routes. We also got a lot of feedback about how to make our bus system better. And one of those things was increasing the frequency. The more often the bus comes, the more convenient it is for people. So we really doubled down on that and increased frequency to 15 to 30 minutes on the Route 7 and 30 to 60 minutes on the Route 6 and 12. We also added Saturday service on a couple of routes, particularly the old route, what was the old Route 12? And we improved crosstown connections from Boise, Meridian, Nampa to Caldwell. We also restored fixed route service on the Nampa Caldwell Boulevard and through Garrity. We also added new fixed route at Caldwell as well as in Meridian. And overall, we ended up doubling the number of people within a quarter mile of 30-minute service. We expect to see a 34% increase in the number of people within a quarter a mile of 15. And overall, we're expecting a 20% increase in ridership. Just looking at currently VRT operates almost 20 routes. As we break those down, we improved or added new routes on a number of routes. We adjusted service on quite a few more. We ended up discontinuing service on 4 routes, but we were able to still accommodate those, at least at the high ridership stops, by rerouting other routes. We performed no change to 4 routes, and then we renamed several routes, the 12 to the 21, the 6 to the 20, and the 8 to the 24. Overall, we're looking, as I said, a 20% increase in ridership by the time this is done. We are looking to implement this service change next summer, which is our fourth quarter of the fiscal year. We're expecting it'll take a full year into 2025 to reach that 20%. We were very lucky this year with all of our partners. We're very excited with our new CEO, Elaine Clegg, coming on board and her vision and all the exciting stuff. So we actually ended up increasing our budget, which we were able to add more service and really improve our investments. So that's reflected here. Because we looked at investing in our higher ridership routes, traditionally VRT has done more of a coverage-based system. We basically tried to cover all of Ada County and all of Canyon County and kind of hit, everybody that we could, even though it might not always be the most convenient service. At this point, we're starting to shift that to try to invest in routes where we can where it's really going to be more convenient for people. And what that really means is in our higher density areas where people are able to use transit more often. So because of that, we saw a slight decrease in the overall population in those two counties that we could reach, but we did see a slight increase in the jobs, and we are seeing substantial increases in access to 15-minute service and within a quarter mile of 30-minute service. And as I just stated, our shift to between coverage-based service to frequent-based service, you can see the percentage shift there. So as we look at the two networks, this is what the current network looks like. A couple things to point out here. One, all of our routes are individually colored, and then we have the two on-demand service areas. The Eagle on-demand service was launched this May, and you'll notice the Canyon County service area is kind of bubbly. So in the future service, next year's service, we have shifted our color scheme to a frequency-based color scheme. And this is part of our overall signage program to make it a little bit easier for people to understand what we're offering. So green indicates our premium routes where we're going to be adding frequent service or 15 to 30-minute service all day. Blue is local service, which is all day, 30 to 60-minute service. Purple is commute service, so that just runs at peak times of commuters. And you can see from the red dashed line, those are the areas where we've eliminated route segments and consolidated them with other ones. You'll also notice the Canyon County on-demand area has been simplified to major roadways, which we will anticipate will be easier for our riders to schedule a ride instead of being in some weird middle area. So specifically the Meridian routes. One of the first routes is the 8X and 8. You can see from the dashed lines, we eliminated those routes and repackaged it into, actually we've changed the number since this slide, but it'll be the Route 24, not the Route 26, but it will provide access between the village to Town Square Mall. Of course, this is going to improve connections east-west, as well as be able to access transit connections in the Lyft transit area. But the north-south connections have been shifted to the Route 12 that runs along Glenwood and Cole. The 30 Pine, which, as you know, we launched last year, and we're continuing to see increasing ridership. We shortened this route and combined it and basically overlapped it with the Route 45. So the Route 45 used to run along Fairview. We've now rerouted it to run along Pine. And while the 30 runs every hour, the 45 will run every hour, but they'll overlap. So we'll actually be providing 30-minute service along Pine, which will make it more convenient, as well as provide folks better access along that corridor. Route 45, as I said, this shows the entire length. We have extended the span. Of course, it's going to improve the connections between Boise and Nampa and goes through Town Square Mall. But there is a loss of service along Fairview and Cherry. Route 42, we have extended this to all-day service along the boulevard, so every hour. It has been rerouted along Garrity, and then we'll head on to the interstate and hit the 10-mile park and ride. Route 40, we initially looked at eliminating the Route 40, but we have a very dedicated ridership that rides the Route 40. So this was added back and continues running through Meridian, primarily on the interstate. And we did add, we did shorten the trips on either side. We basically had a trip in the morning and a trip at night that had the busiest ridership, and then a couple trips that had no ridership. So we eliminated the trips that had no ridership and added another one at the time folks requested. Jane Maps and accessibility. So Jane is a tool that we use for mapping to basically demonstrate how far you can go on the transit system from a specific location by specific times. So as we look, so Main Street Station is our primary transit hub. As we look at the system radiating out from there, in the past, our network used to be designed on a pulse system. So more of east-west, most of the commuter traffic is basically coming into Boise. So that's why it's very horizontal. In the future, we're going to be shifting, particularly with the growth with Meridian, shifting to more of a network or grid network. So people can go north-south and make connections without having to go all the way into Boise. They can go to Town Square Mall and be able to make connections without having to go all the way into Main Street Station. But the primary improvement you'll see in comparing these two maps is around in the Garden City area with improvements along the 7 along Fairview and up Chinden Avenue in the 30-minute isochrone. As we take a look at Town Square Mall, as I just mentioned, we're working on making Town Square Mall more of a hub, so more routes go in there and people can use it as a transfer station. And particularly with the Route 21 that used to be the Route 12 that goes along Cole and Glenwood, that's going to run every 30 minutes and on Saturdays 30 minutes. So that's going to provide a lot of access, and that's why you see the blue extending up. You'll also notice with Meridian, with the Route 24, the 60-minute service really extends. In 2023, there's nothing. It pretty much stops, but it extends all the way over the village and all the way along Pine. As we take a look at downtown Meridian, the isochrone, again, really, as I said, we see really improved 30 to 45-minute service along Fairview, along the Fairview corridor, getting to Town Square Mall in the Boise and, Town Square Mall in Boise. So anytime we change the fixed route network, we also have to change our specialized services to make up that demand. And as I said, we initially started this process sort of cutting service. And so we looked at a way to expand these services. It's ended up being really a great benefit to our ridership. So the first one, Lyft Late Night, which is a service that we partner with Lyft on. It's basically for after the bus runs, so 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. For qualified low income workers can basically use this after the bus ride to get around for $3, excuse me, a $3 ride. In the past, the area that we added downtown Meridian on Pine down to Overland, we included that entire area. What we found as we looked at the data is there was a number of employment clusters that could use the service, as well as a number of households that met the low income threshold. So a lot of people would qualify for that service. This is a really great service for employers, particularly if you have service businesses like restaurants where there's employees getting off late, people need to get to and from work. This would be a great service for them to use. Lyft Transit Connections. In the past, so this service basically is a first last mile service that, again, VRT subsidizes it with $2 rides that people, if you're longer you know, basically, if you are unable to walk to the bus stop, but you're within this service area, you can call Lyft, get a ride for $2 to the nearest bus stop and get on the fixed route. In the past, this service area was just in Northwest Boise. We've basically extended it all the way into Southeast Boise, all the way out to the village in Meridian and south through Overland. This one we really increased a lot. We almost doubled the number of qualifying stops people can go to. So this particularly, you know, as we move westward where there's maybe not as much area where it's connected by sidewalks or bikes and it makes it difficult for people to walk or ride safely, they can use this service. And we're also hoping to offer a package deal with our passes as we look at our fares. So they'll both be combined into one easy package for folks to use. So access service area, this is the service area that we're required to provide 3/4 of a mile within our fixed route service to people with disabilities and older adults. As our fixed route shifted, of course, this shifted as well. So in this map, you can see in the past, Meridian was not connected to the Boise service area. But with the new update where the blue is shown, it will now be connected. So people that want to use that service will not only be able to travel around the Meridian area, but they'll also be able to go into Boise, which will make it much more convenient. And then finally, our Beyond Access service area. So this is a program, VRT had a number of subcontracting service providers that provide transportation to older adults and those with disabilities outside the access area. And we had all different service areas that overlapped, that operated on different days of the week. And so this is all going to be combined under one umbrella. It's going to cover both counties. So riders will basically be able to call VRT and go between both counties and in both counties. This service is free and people can call the day before to make a reservation. So as I said, the board approved this. We have a lot of work to do. We're looking at adding over 100 new bus stops to implement this service change next summer. So we'll be doing the permitting for those. We have a whole new branding program and signage program, which will be rolled out this spring. So you will start seeing new signs being installed at bus stops all across the Meridian area. These new signs, I think are going to really raise the visibility of transit. I mean, it's pretty easy right now to drive right by a bus stop and not necessarily recognize it, but these are big, bright, they have the routes on them. People are going to take notice and it's going to be a lot easier to understand. There'll also be schedule holders at each one of them that will have the routes and the stops on them. So people will be able to use that along with the QR code if they want to go right to the website and see where the specific stops and time points are. So yes, we will. Yeah. All right. I'll stand for any questions you guys might have.
Questions from Ms. Dahl? I have a couple of points and maybe a question.
Sure.
Kudos to VRT. You mentioned that they did 3 public outreach efforts during this. And I was surprised that they had 3 different sets of what they were going to do. They had the initial that staff had worked up, then they had the public. They took that, got a lot of response, both attendance-wise and on the internet. They reacted to that, made changes, then did it again and reacted again. There were some areas that were proposed to be dropped that did not get dropped because they got such a response. They shuffled things around. So I was very impressed both with the survey response by the public and VRT's response to the public response. Why implementation in June of 24? Why not sooner? I've never asked that and I've never heard what it is. What's
Well,
secret
the
about
primary
June
reason is
24?
Well, because it's such a big service. I mean, this is the biggest service change I think VRT's done in its history. So, I mean, one of the big things is the bus stops, and us rolling out. Basically, we don't have the staff, I guess, to be direct about it. We don't have the staff capacity to roll it out in fall. It was a big enough service change for the staff that we have that we need the extra time. There's also the permitting component of it. So with all of the new bus stops, we have to go through the NEPA environmental review. We have to get permits through ACHD and ITD in each of the jurisdictions. And so really our new bus stops won't be fully implemented until 2025 because of that permitting and construction process. There will be signs at all of the new signs at all of the bus stops, but the new bus stops will not have concrete pads and some of the other amenities.
Did you mention, and I didn't hear it, that you're repainting the buses a different color scheme?
We do have new buses that will have the VRT racing stripes on them. So we did actually surprise get a new one a couple weeks ago. So yeah, some of them, the wraps that we have on the bus has turned out to be a really great revenue stream. For VRT, we have a great salesman. So we've made almost close to $1 million just selling bus wraps this year, but we will have new bus wraps that are on brand.
For the non-advertising buses, you got to have a new paint scheme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything else from Ms. Dahl?
Thank you.
My last comment is to tell you how impressed I am that you said any other questions, call Stephen on the last slide.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hood, you're back up with staff communications, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. You will find in your packet the staff communications information. It begins on, so item 6, page 63. I was just looking at that again. I don't know that I have too much more to bring to your attention, kind of like the project updates. If you want to talk about any of them, we can. One of the last things I added was on page 66, the Linda Road overpass. That survey actually closed on November 2nd. So was that last Thursday or Friday? When I talked to the project manager, they had already had over 200 people take the survey on the Linda Road overpass. So that was encouraging. He was still kind of trying to formulate and summarize those. And in fact, ACHD will be at the Meridian, not Transportation Commission, but Task Force, the Linda Road Overpass Task Force, next Monday to present some of those survey results and what they heard from the public. But anyways, that link should still work to get to the project website, but that survey has closed at this time.
Anything else on that?
No, sir.
Question for Mr. Price, if he's still with us. He may not know the answer. There's a very good picture on page 63 of the Highway 16 work south on McDermott, south of Macmillan and north of Ustick, showing the new pedestrian bridge, which is open. But I was very surprised to see what I consider to be a suicide prevention fence on that ped bridge. It's about a 6 to 8 foot tall, not chicken wire, pretty stable wiring that they use on some of the highway overpasses. And I was just curious as to why they felt that was necessary. I mean, I know an 8-year-old doing a 10-foot drop can get hurt, but it's not that far down. Mr. Price, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
And if you know the answer to that, I'm going to be shocked because I didn't warn you I was going to ask.
Yeah, I do not know the answer offhand. I mean, it is pretty typical for us to add some type of fencing over a pedestrian structure, but I'd have to ask the project design team why they settled on that for that particular location, but I could find out if you'd like me to.
I'm just curious, it's certainly needed, if you look at the form and shape of the bridge rail on the ped bridge, it's very open. So it'd be very easy for some child or somebody a dog to fall through it. But it not only goes up to the top rail, it keeps going another 5 or 6 feet, which is just surprised me. Mr. Hood, do you have any more information on page 65 about the complaint that we received regarding people apparently parking in this private street neighborhood over by the high school? I rode over to look at it and coincidentally found a man backing his pickup truck into his house on the east-west street, asked him to come over, told him why I was over there, and asked him, you know, what's the deal? How does it work? And I said, how do they get in here? There's a big fence on the north side of your subdivision. And he says, oh, they come down the street, down the sidewalk on Pine, and parents park along Pine, and some also on the north-south street leading into the small subdivision, you can see in the picture, and pick up their kids. Mr. Watson and I have been talking about a situation over off of Macmillan where you've got kids being picked up in a neighborhood and so forth. And I don't know whether it's children that don't want anybody to know they have a parent, so they ask them to park out of sight and walk over there, or whether it's the fact that mother doesn't want to get caught in all the traffic closer to the school and parks out there and says, walk down here and I'll be waiting on you. But they do, apparently, I didn't see any, I wasn't there when school let out, but apparently a few cars are parking on that north-south street. It's marked private, it's marked fire lane. And I presume that the police department looks at parking as nobody being in the car and standing being somebody sitting in the car, maybe, like I've heard in the past. But I'm just not sure what the problem is.
So, Mr. Chair, your first question, I don't have much more to add than what's in the packet. My plan was to follow up with Ms. Carson after a little more, she gets situated a little bit better. These are her notes. So if any correspondence has gone out from the school to the parents, reminding them to not do this, I didn't think this would be priority 1 for her. But that was her recommendation, and now she sort of controls some of that destiny, I think, to make things happen. And I haven't talked to police either or code enforcement. So yeah, again, I don't have too much more of an update, but that was going to be my plan of attack, was in a week or two. Hey, remember this? Can you help us with the high school? Send an email, a letter, or something out to the parents.
The yellow streets are private, according to the street signs. And like I say, the gentleman said he didn't see anybody parking on the east-west street, but he does see them park on the north-south a little bit. Mr. Reinhardt, Sergeant, either one of you have any other input on this? Again, I didn't warn you I was going to ask.
Mr. Chair, commissioners, that it is not uncommon for us around our high schools and middle schools, well, elementary schools as well, for parents to avoid the congestion and park in neighborhoods. And it is also not uncommon to get negative feedback from the neighborhoods on that. What we, as Ms. Carson must have noted, our practice is normally we'll have the principal send something out to parents, reminding them to obey traffic laws, to be mindful of residents. But in terms, and if they're parked illegally, and on something that's marked, that's when we kindly turn to MPD, or they should turn to MPD. We can't enforce much. We can't enforce anything off of our property, but this is a common situation we run into, and the parking on Pine is a problem. That I believe that is also illegal. and marked, I believe, in front of the school as either a bike lane or marked not to park. So I think it's people trying to find, they're trying to not be in the fray and trying to be out there. And so that's what we tend to do is we remind them, and then we say at that point, it becomes a matter of enforcement of our partners at Meridian Police Department.
Budget?
Mr. Chair. Yes, it's my experience. I'm just now hearing about this particular area, but we get in general complaints at nearly every school. It may have their own unique twist on it, but we're going out and we're evaluating what the complaint is, getting eyes on those. For the most part, there's nothing illegal going on. We're not seeing violations. It's typically a 10 to 20-minute problem a day. We're working with the schools and our SROs as best possible to find a solution that best fits their school. But we do have to get parents in to pick up their kids. So we're looking for a way for homeostasis essentially to facilitate this. But we are, a lot of these, considering them standing and not parking. And then again, most of this is just, it's an inconvenience for the residents that live there. But there's not a lot of options for the parents to park if they're waiting for their kid.
Regarding the parking versus standing, can you sit in your car on a private street that's marked fire lane legally?
So we have some exceptions for different, essentially violating certain parking, and that's probably the wrong term, but certain parking rules, as long as they're actively unloading or loading passengers. I mean, that's our interpretation of that. But typically, I'm not seeing marked fire zones where this is occurring. We have a couple schools where we do enforce those because they're there for vision obstruction, for safety, those kinds of things.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, John Wasson, Ada County Highway District.
Mr. Watson, jump right in, sir, please.
I think you need to get the attorney involved in this one because what this forms is a trespass onto private property. Those private lanes are private property. They do not belong to the public right of way. And so if those are posted, that becomes a trespass situation. And maybe the attorney can shed some light as to what rights the homeowners have on that situation.
Mr. Hood, maybe you're going to add another name to your list of people to talk to about this. Okay, that takes care of all of our old and new business. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 future meeting topics on the list. And Mr. Hood indicated one while ago that isn't on that list, but we will hear about at the next meeting. Mr. Watson and the school district, I presume, are still working on American Fork at Lunder Crossing. We keep hearing complaints about that. Mr. Watson told me that the Bell Tower Copper Cloud speed study is going to be conducted. Is Lost Rapids at Bird Park still alive, Mr. Watson? I'm not wishing to discuss it, but I'd like to know if is it still something with more information to come?
It needed some artificial resuscitation, but yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And the landscape matrix guide, is that the same as the one you were talking about with Tier 1 a while ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone have anything else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Nope.
how about now?
It's better, I think. Just maybe
Get your red light off.
pull a little closer.
Oh, okay. Downtown Parking Committee is meeting November 30th. We'll have an update at the December 4th meeting also.
Hood, did you get that to put on our agenda for next meeting? Thank you. Anyone else? Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Hopkins. Do we have a second? Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody want to stay? Y'all have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much for your attendance.